Hello and welcome to episode 97 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans' weekly off-topic podcast. Or maybe we're a bit more on topic this week. So, it's part 2 of Grim Fandango. We finally returned back to the underworld, the 8th underworld. And joining me, we are a man down. Josh has been unable to join us this time, but two fantastic regulars of Retro Encounter have joined me. I'm Alana Hagues, Diving Falcons on the board, and with me is Mike Sollosi.
Hello, Mike Sollosi, Monsoon on the boards. You've heard me on many Retro Encounters before, if you've listened to many Retro Encounters before.
And also joining me is Marcos Gaspar.
Howdy there, Wild Armor on the boards. I used to do it back in the day, but you whippersnappers have been doing just fine without me.
Marcos,
Yeah.
I want you on every episode, Marcos. You just break my heart every time.
Aw.
We need to pick more obscure stuff for you. So if we throw Grandier at you, or Resonance of Fate, or Wild Arms, then maybe we'll.
Yeah, Marcos, you did like Darksiders and Terra Nigma and a bunch of off the beaten path games. I'll get you on a Resonance of Fate episode or something one of these days.
I only play the most hippest and most unknownest of RPGs.
Or things like this.
If we ever do an episode on Bumpy Trot, then Marcos is going to have to host it.
I wouldn't mind doing that. That's something I would. That's Steambot Chronicles for those in America.
I just think Bumpy Trot is a much easier name to remember than Steambot Chronicles.
Yeah,
I like Bumpy Chop a lot more. I'm really confused why they did Steambot Chronicles.
Yep. All right, so maybe we should actually talk about the game we're supposed to talk about.
Yeah, let's focus on this offbeat one. Oh, I wouldn't have this with anybody else. But, so Grim Fandango. So, last episode we focused on years 1 and 2 of Manny's adventures to rescue Meche. And we're on to years 3 and 4. We followed him from his home city all the way through Rubicava to the ends of the world and back. And now he's happy where he wants to be. So, we'll start with year 3. We'll gradually work through the year 3 and year 4, and then we'll go over some more general points of the game itself, because quite a lot happens between year 3 and 4. So, in terms of year 3, it's Manny's left Rubicava, where he has set up base with a bar, and he has chased after Meche, who was being carted away in a boat by Domino. So, the game starts off on a ship, which my favourite character, who we will talk about later, Glottis, has very kindly decked up and made to look like some glorious powerboat. But
well, Glottis literally exists to drive fast and make things go faster. So he was having a ball upgrading that boat.
He does. He makes me so happy. He just takes pleasure in the small things. We were reminiscing before this podcast. We recorded the first episode a few weeks before this. We actually didn't talk about Glottis in the last episode, and we all kind of agree that he's one of the best parts of the game. So we'll definitely dedicate a few minutes to him. But year 3 is, well, it takes you out of the comfort of cities, really, because year 1 and year 2 are set in the main city and also set in, which names escaped me, and then you've got Rubicava, which is year 2. So year 3 is set between a boat, the ocean, and the end of the world, basically. So things start off quite dramatically, and you have to basically tear a hole in the boat just to escape from, I believe it's Domino, or somebody is chasing you. So things start off fairly easily puzzle-wise. I think, if I'm right, we were...
You're being chased by agents of Hector and Domino.
That's right.
Yeah, who are disguised as customs officers. And
That's
they're about to sprout you, and Glottis drags you off, and then you solve that weird anchor puzzle to scuttle your own ship and get into the ocean.
That's right.
And there was a moment that actually made me really sad for a second, because I forget what the old name of the ship was, but sometime in the year between 2 and 3, he renames the ship Lola. And while him and Glottis are going to the bottom of the sea, and they see their ship sink. I'm sorry, their ship sink. Manny goes, "Oh, Lola, I'm sorry, I let you down again," and that just made me think of the emotional Lola death scene from year 2. And man, this game really kills it with the one-liners sometimes, man.
Yeah, it really does. The script is fantastic for this game, and I'm sure that's something we'll go over quite a bit as we go towards the end. Year three is a bit of a muddle for me, so it throws you between three different locations. So the first part of the game is set on the boat, which chapter is set on the boat, which is fairly brief. The second part, oddly enough, is set under the sea, where you meet a sea monkey, I believe, Chipito, who is quite a quirky character. I'm a big fan of Chipito and his lovely little song as he wanders around. And then lastly, you end up in Domino's office at the edge of the world. So
Chipito
um,
has a rough go of things.
he does have a rough go of things. He makes a good, or tries to make friends with a big octopus at the behest of Manny. So, yeah, poor Chipito. So we got any kind of overriding feelings about this chapter, or?
Well, you make a good point that it goes between three locations, Alana, and you basically go from location to location like it's three separate chapters, and that
Yeah,
felt like a different pace or a different vibe than year one and year two. Because in year one, you do a lot of messing around in El Mero, in like
that's
your
right.
in like your office and the street and like on the and the side alley of your building. It's a bit of a sandbox to play in. And all of year two, it's a giant sandbox where you're running all over Rubicava, and it's some areas that are even hard to find. And it really feels like sort of a non-linear, explore everything, get to know the setting kind of gameplay. Even less so in the forest section in year one. But
Yeah,
year three is a little bit more linear because you're sort of hurtling towards a story finish instead of finding a way out of where you are. And
yeah,
it's so like the pace of just moving around and the puzzle solving is different in year three, and I think it's probably because I'm very attached to Rubicava, and year two is by far my favorite year of this
mm.
game. That I didn't like year three as much as one or two. I think.
No, it's a lot more contained, and I think I grew, like you, I grew very attached to the people who lived in Rubicava. Like every single character in
Yeah.
Rubicava had a personality and had a purpose. And we'll go back to some of them a little bit later as well. But yeah, year three was a bit of an up and down for me. So I kind of enjoyed the first half of it a little bit. I love Chipito. I like the way that he pops up later on as well. As soon as you
The
kind
two
of
little
hit,
kids that are making light bulbs
yeah,
are cool little NPCs.
they're they're quite delightful as well. But yeah, the linearity of it, while I think we spent a lot of the last episode complaining about how vague some of the puzzles are because of how open the world is, this time was a little bit like, oh, so there's really only like one or two things you can do to get to the answer, really. So I was looking up before we recorded, and Tim Schafer at the time, when he was making this game, developed this kind of non-linear puzzle sequence. So there are quite a few puzzles in the game that you don't have to do in a particular order or have to find the solution in a particular order. And
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was some of that. Yeah, there was some
All,
of that in this.
all of year two. I think you could have done that in a large
Mm.
variety of orders. And then
Oh
we
yeah,
can talk about. I have a specific thing to talk about at year two, but we can do that later. It's yeah, these puzzles are less going around and finding the puzzles and finding out what you need to do, and more. These are your goals. Here's a puzzle. Solve the puzzle. Continue.
yeah. And Marcus, is there anything that sticks out to you about year three, or?
Um, for me, it was I don't know. For me, like I just got like really lost with some of the puzzles. Like one of them was when you're breaking into the safe to get Mechi.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Oh,
oh yeah, it's like, all right, just do this. All right, turn it. All right, I got it. And then I try to open it. No, I was like, what am I doing wrong? And then I
yeah,
noticed, didn't you have to put your scythe like right like in that mechanism so you can open it?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
you
you
had
had
to.
to get them flat and then put the scythe in to open the door, and then open the door while the scythe was in it. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I failing so bad? And like I was doing so good at the beginning because I was just clicking on everything and doing the right thing, but then it just
Yeah.
started going downhill. It's like, you know what? I'm
Uh,
just having to consult my buddy, Mr. GF.
Yeah,
she have
not girlfriend, not guardian force, but game facts. But
Guardian Force.
hmm
No, but or Grim Fandango.
or Grim
Grim
Fandango, sure,
Fandango
or
friend.
the thing we're supposed to be talking about right now.
Exactly.
But Marcos is right. Like sometimes puzzles would have one stupid detail that it was easy to miss and make the puzzle unsolvable. Like for me, it was one thing I had to do 3 times was the balloon in year 1, the balloon animal explosive mixture puzzle, because I forgot to turn the lock while the door was open so it wouldn't automatically lock. That messed me up, and I had to do the thing a second time. And it's just that because so many of these puzzles have wann und precisely wann solution, that it's really annoying when one detail isn't intuitive, or one detail escapes your notice and just throws a spanner into the entire operation. And that happened with me at that with that door I had to unlock, and Marcos with not having the scythe in the exact right place, or I'm not positive exactly what happened to you, man. But that's just a weakness of 90s adventure game puzzles. That was at times sometimes it's charging. I can't speak today. Sometimes it's charming, and sometimes it's a struggle.
Yeah, but it's okay. Like at least like even though I was still struggling with the puzzles, the characters themselves, like Glottis on the ship when they're being like the guys banging on the door after like saying, "Yeah, we'll sprout them," and then they're banging on the door. It's like, "Hey, we're custom officers. We just need to check on something," and he's just like, "Glottis, do something," and he's like, "Okay." I was like, thank you, Glottis.
There are those little tidbits that do make things a little bit worth it. In the case of the puzzle you're referring to, that's one of the times, and I think when you were driving the car in year 1, which I brought up as being really awkward, that's when the controls get really fiddly. So it took me a couple of moments to realise that you had to move the first one around once to get the second one to move around once, and then the third one to get moving around, and then if you screw up, then you've essentially got to remove all of the other ones, and because of the angle of the camera, you don't actually know if it's completely straight as well. So The purpose of the puzzle is to line up there are like these 4 hexagons that have got one straight flat edge that you have to line up with the entrance of the door, or so you can put your scythe in, open the door and unlock it. And then you have to drill into it first as well. So it's just an all-round kind of a hassle. But I'd say, the puzzle that I remember struggling with in this one, and something in general, is not just how vague some of the answers are, but the fact that you're just kind of thrown in. So you're not told what you need to do. So the hammer
the goal isn't always clear, and the mechanic isn't always clear. And I apologize. There's a very intense thunderstorm happening at just outside my nice safe house right now. But so the goal isn't always clear, the mechanic isn't always clear, and sometimes there's small steps that are easy to skip, which Marcos and I both went into a little bit. So the puzzles can be really frustrating, but I mean, seeing them play out is satisfying, and they are almost always fairly creative. So just like seeing the Rube Goldberg machine happen is at least cool. It would be satisfying if I solved them myself, but I used a guide for almost all of the second half of the game, so I didn't get that. I didn't get that Zelda puzzle solutions music satisfaction, at least this time.
I think, not to a detriment to it, but I think playing it with a walkthrough, and there are some other games that you have to play with a walkthrough to really appreciate what's really good about it. So the puzzles themselves are clever, but the solution and the reward for it is sometimes more important. Like, it's the journey, basically.
Yeah, and I'm also blaming myself a little bit. I was in a bit of a time crunch to finish this game in time for the podcast. So if I had a little more time and a little more pride, then I probably wouldn't have used a walkthrough and found the puzzle solutions more satisfying when I finally hacked through them. But then I definitely wouldn't have finished this game in time if I had done that. So
I have no shame of consulting GameFAQs.
No, I completely agree. I think I was getting frustrated anyway because of not how much thought I had to put into it, but how much additional steps I had to think. I had to think like I was Manny, and Manny was so far away from me that I just struggled to think of being in his position and thinking of basically being in Tim Schafer's mind probably is the correct answer. I couldn't think like that. So another particular puzzle that I was going to refer to, which is completely unclear, is where you have to get Meche's stockings off of her. So, Go on, Mike.
And you have to click them 3 times or something, and
Yeah,
you need the stockings, and you have to give them to oh shoot, do you have to do you have to give them to him, or do you have to just use them next to him? I forget which.
I don't know. You have to give them to him because you have to give him two things.
Yeah.
You have to give him the hammer to get the drill, and then you have to give him the stockings to get a gun.
Yeah.
It's like...
But that goes back to the goal being unclear and the mechanics being unclear. In what universe do you think there's a gun over there, I should bug Meche 3 times to get her stockings and give the stockings to Chipito to get the gun? Like, that chain of logic does not feel logical to me.
I didn't know if it was 3 times. I thought it was you had to time it so that you turned her ashtray away from her so she flicked ash onto herself to burn a hole in her tights.
That was
but what makes that even more...
I'm sorry. I think the walkthrough I said said interact 3 times or something. So I mean, I don't totally know the mechanic of it.
Oh, it might be. It may possibly be that. But the one I used said try and time it so that you get it so that she flicks ash onto her tights and burns a hole in there.
Also, not a logical thought that would go through your head if you're trying to get her stockings, which sounds gross when I say it like that. But it's man, what an odd direction to take that puzzle.
Yeah, and exactly. Like, it's not even like you're just turning the ashtray. Manny has to have a smoke before it as well, so it's like you have to time it about 5 seconds before you know she's going to flick it. So, yeah, it's just a really bizarre step to another solution that has a bizarre solution.
The timing puzzles get weird in his too, because like the bone tattoo puzzle in year 2 and the burning beaver puzzle in year 1 both had that, you know, shuffle through your inventory and get this timing just right kind of edge to it. And I managed to do it successfully for the beaver thing pretty easily, but the tattoo thing was one of the longest, one of the longest mechanical things I had to do in year 2. So it's...
Yeah. So also another thing that confused me on the way through was when you get the gun, you obviously have to go back to Meche and point it at her, and then she takes it off you and points it back at you, and I don't know whether I missed something there, but I don't know whether she was just using you to escape, basically. Is that what everybody else kind of interpreted it as, or...
Oh, for that, like, I thought he was handing her the gun, like, don't you trust me, Meche? And he hands her the gun, and then she pulls the bullet out of her ear, and then puts it in there, and then points at him because she didn't trust him. Because Domino was talking to him like, "You're gonna be taken after me. You're gonna be running this place."
Right.
That's why she really didn't trust him then.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. So it's until he rescues her that she's like, "Oh yeah, I do trust him."
And will also, like, she still blames him for... She thinks that Manny denied her trip on the train.
Yeah.
Like, for a while, she seriously thought Domino was rescuing her from Manny, I didn't realize that immediately when I was playing through the first 2 years, because I was a little surprised when she pushed him off the boat when he was trying to reach her in the cutscene right at the beginning of year 2.
Oh, see, for that, I thought, like, when you talked to Meche, Manny asks, like, why did you, give me a bruise on my head? And then she says, because it was a trap, like laid by Domino. He would have, like, ended up at the edge or whatever.
I think she was lying to him. I think
Really?
I think she still did not trust Manny until the end of year 3.
Interesting. That is interesting.
I can go both ways with that. I can believe either or.
Yeah. But I mean, Manny and Meche's relationship is almost bizarre, I think. It's almost, I suppose it's typical film noir, like she's the femme fatale, she's the ideal kind of object of desire kind of thing for Manny, and go on.
Maybe. It depends it depends on your interpretation of femme fatale. Like femme fatale literally means deadly woman or dangerous woman.
And she definitely is.
And in a way, I think Meche is almost like an innocent woman that's sort of caught up in this, and Olivia's the real femme fatale.
Oh, yeah, I suppose so. Olivia or the secretary whose name completely escapes me. Ava, yeah. So either of those two are definitely the femme fatale, and she is the damsel in distress, I suppose.
Because, I mean, all three of those women sort of comfortably fit into some kind of, it's the kind of women characters that are in noir stories. But
Yeah.
and I'm probably being
That's what I was
too.
going
I'm probably
for.
being. I'm too attached to semantics, deciding who's a femme fatale and who isn't.
No, no.
That's not a useful argument. But
No.
it is true that that I think that Meche maybe sort of agrees to go along with Manny unusually quickly, and I still didn't totally trust her until like the very end of the game.
No,
I didn't.
I didn't either.
I didn't really trust anyone until the very end of the game, except for maybe Sal, and the only one except for maybe
Sal.
Glottis. Like Sal,
Oh,
I didn't trust Sal, but I should have,
oh,
I
yeah,
did trust Glottis, and I also should have,
yeah,
because Glottis is the
exactly.
best.
Yes,
Glottis is the
yes.
best. No, you make a good point there, and that's definitely me using my terminology a bit loosely. But yeah, I don't really get the relationship between the two of them necessarily because she spends so little time on screen. She's like a really old RPG heroine, I suppose, like Princess Sarah from Final Fantasy or something like that. She's just kind of a goal in
Yeah,
this sort of.
or the princess in Dragon Quest One. She
Yeah,
really is a plot point or a goal, and the reason I sort of accepted her in year 4 was because between year 3 and 4, they're traveling with all of the other escapees from the edge of the world for a year. So it's like, okay, maybe they bonded and got their goals aligned
yeah.
in that intervening year. But I think that the turn in year 3 maybe happened a little too fast, especially since like you said, she has barely any screen time.
Yeah, exactly. And she spends most of year 4 in the background anyway. She pops up in a couple
Mm.
of scenes, but yeah. So I suppose if we're going towards the end of year 3, we've got the section after opening the door where you have to figure out the what's it called? The sprinkler. So you have to cut the sprinkler opener open, and then you have to break a hole in the floor. That one wasn't too bad either. I was just kind of figuring out like why am I doing
Manny Calavera has a little bit of MacGyver in him because
He does.
sometimes the way he gets out of situations, man.
Oh yeah, he's very good at that, definitely. And also, I suppose, in a twist, there's not a boss fight necessarily, but there is kind of a climax to this. So Domino, who has been your rival for the entire game, meets some beautiful, satisfying end from one of Glottis's wonderful contraptions on that boat. I love that. I love that man, or that demon, apparently. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting end to the chapter because we've not really had like a showdown before, so it felt like it was coming to the end.
And
What did you think?
he's such a sleazeball in year 1, and
Yeah,
he's sort of like keeping Mitchie just out of reach in year 2. It was
yeah,
satisfying seeing him. He's a a villain that's exactly unlikable enough that you're happy to see him go and
yeah,
get crushed to death gruesomely.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely like that. So then jumping straight into year 4, then as we've already alluded to, a year passes where the whole of the group from the edge of the world spend the next year hiking, and they get to the ninth. I've actually forgotten what they're called. It's not ninth underworld. It's the ninth something, or But
Is it the ninth
anyway,
circle or the ninth station or something? Because
I
I think it like conflates the idea of a train station with like a Mesoamerican or maybe Mayan or Aztec temple, which is a cool
oh,
visual choice.
it is called the Ninth Underworld.
In Ninth
Yeah,
Underworld, okay, cool.
which in the Ninth Underworld, which is so it goes from the Day of the Dead, and the Ninth Underworld is the gate to the Mayan mechanics. So, I like year 4. I think year 4 is a really good year, but again, it's there's a lot more scope and a lot more places that you visit. Probably I like it because you end up going back to Rubicava for quite a big section of it, and the start of it begins quite sadly because poor Glottis is not very well, and there is this kind of like you've got to bring him back to life. And it's not the first time where he's I mean, the first time his heart was entirely pulled out of him, but this time he's genuinely quite sick. And there's some little baby Glottises who are adorable and make these quirky little noises. I really love how you bring Glottis essentially back to life and the solution for that. But Jesus, just gonna put oil on my rag and burn it. Like, why would I do that? Like, what would bring me to that solution? But yeah, I mean, this I think is where I wanted to talk about Glottis because we've alluded Glottis is a demon or a demon of the land or something. He's been created specifically as to repair cars. He's the mechanic at the travel agents that Manny works at. So
I think
spends
he was a mechanic that dreamed of being a driver.
exactly
Because the way demons work in the Grim Fandango world is that every demon is created to perform a simple task, and the only way they get satisfaction out of life, or the only way they can survive, they can exist, is to do that task. And for Glottis, that is, fixing vehicles and driving fast. So that's why he's always tinkering with stuff and gets extreme satisfaction from making noises while driving things quickly.
Ah!
Vroom, vroom.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So he's adorable, and he's just like a little child, which is what I love. So everybody's so there's a mature vibe about Grim Fandango, and also a silly vibe, but he brings some really light-hearted relief to it. So he's like silly humor amongst all of this kind of black comedy and sprouting people. He's just a joy to be around, and every time he's making his noises when he's in his car, I just have to kind of stop and listen to him because he's so cute. I kind of want a little Glottis, in case anybody hasn't noticed. But to bring him back to life at the end of chapter 4, at the beginning of chapter 4, sorry, the little demons say, oh, the only way you can bring him back to life is if he drives. And so what you have to do is you get given a mug from one of your the first person you sell a package to in the game, and you have to hang that mug up, and then you have to pick out a cloth from a rag, clean it on some oil, put the toaster on, do something dangerous and put it in the toaster, and then it blows up and the mug starts flying around and provides fuel for a very fast car, which we strap Glottis to and use it to travel back to Rubicava, which brings him back to life. So he's a good boy.
I just like that the revival of Glottis, the only way to do it is that he has to go really fast.
He has to do Mad Max, essentially.
Yep. Mad Max or Speed Racer or... I don't know. He's like... The concept behind him is really sort of fun and endearing, and his personality is just so goofy, and but his intentions are always very pure and direct. He's a super likable character design. I like him a lot. And did any of you guys unlock the Rusty Anchor scene in year 2?
No, I didn't.
I did, because the guide I was using was giving me trophy notifications, like, oh, do this and this if you want this trophy. And I saw that if you do things in a certain order in year 2, then you can unlock a special scene with Glottis. So I'm like, oh, okay, sure, I'll just follow the guide and do that. Because there's one point in year 2 where if you give Glottis a VIP pass, and that, he has and Glottis has a gambling problem, so if you give him the VIP pass, he'll take it and race to the VIP room at the cat track and start betting on the cats. But if you delay that as long as possible and basically do every other task you can before you need Glottis at the cat track, then you can give him one of the tickets that's inside Lola's jacket after she dies, and that'll remind him of a song, and he'll play this sort of like jaunty pirate ditty on the piano called Rusty Anchor.
Aww.
And it is super cool. And it's like, man, here's this crazy character who like is larger than the piano itself, just banging out a jaunty tune on the piano, and it was like, what a strange Easter egg to have in the game, but also it just made me like Manny and Glottis and Rubicava more. So it was a cool bit. Like it was pretty convoluted getting there, because I think it's pretty easy to get to, because you get that ticket pretty early, and it's pretty easy to just sort of show it to Glottis as a matter of course. You have to sort of know the exact order to get that scene, but it's at least worth checking out on YouTube. It was really cool. Just look up Glottis Rusty Anchor or something.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to check it out, definitely. Glottis gets a lot of time to shine in chapter 4. There's another puzzle that comes straight after this, but I'll go over very briefly the premise of year 4, and we can go into specifics as well. So this one starts off, as I said, they've hiked to the 9th gate, and they found out that these the people that they've brought are not entitled to go through the gate because they don't have the tickets, and Manny's accused of selling them. So they have to prove that they're not the people who are selling them, that it's somebody else. So we have obviously got to go back to Rubicava and El Marrow. So once we've back to Rubicava, which is a really nice surprise, and I was actually really shocked that we'd go back to revisit some areas, and it was a really nice kind of, not nostalgia trip, but just really nice to see how things have changed in 2 years' time, because you forget with how short this game that it's actually over a 4-year period and that things do change over time. But it was nice to talk to some of the characters again. So you meet Velasco, who was the captain who let you on board the ship, and he was a delight. It was nice to speak to him again. And he goes off, doesn't he? So you tell him that you had a new boat, and he was like, oh, that's my boat. And you're like, oh no, I pawned it off. And he was like, no, I'm going to leave now. I must go after my boat. And so you have to steal his bottle and come up with some funky concoction with gelatin in it, feed it to Glottis. And Glottis is he likes drink. He'll drink anything, I think. What a sweetheart.
His and all the puzzles that surround him make it a little more fun. So it was cool seeing him have a larger role in year 4 than he did in year 2 or 3. And
Yeah.
and I'm also I also agree with you that it was cool visiting Rubicava again, and also returning to El Marrow and seeing how much it's changed, because Hector has, his influence has grown and grown, and Hector's obviously the culprit behind the stolen and selling of the tickets. And also the ticket guy at the Ninth Underworld mentions that if you try to get on the train with a fake ticket, then the train goes straight to hell.
Yes.
Which is
I missed that.
which is one of the sort of threats hanging over the last chapter of the game.
That's right.
And also maybe he mentions this later, but he Manny remembers that when you do sell one of the ticket will fly to its appropriate person.
That's right.
And see, he identifies some of the tickets they find as counterfeits because none of them are flying to the people accompanying him.
That's right. It happens quite midway through the chapter, maybe. I don't.
Maybe it happens later
remember.
than what you were describing. But I was remembering that was one of the reveals that was sort of one of the later pieces of the puzzle coming together.
And yeah, and that's also one of the bits where you have an idea of what to do for later puzzles. So the very last puzzle at the end of the game is finding somebody's dead or remains of their body, and you use it by using their number 9 ticket, don't you? And it gravitates towards them, and you have to dig them out. But the puzzle I'm referring to is kind of a gross one, because you're basically making Glottis very sick, and he throws up everywhere. And then you have to think, this is another one of those illogical puzzles. I mean, I love it because it involves Glottis, and it's a very silly puzzle, but you basically have to freeze his vomit and walk across it to disarm a bomb. So, I mean, points for creativity, but
how is a player supposed to arrive at that conclusion from what's presented to them?
Yeah. I mean...
Oh, of course, frozen vomit to make a bridge to stop the bomb. Hey, Glottis, I have some weird pudding for you.
Yeah, exactly. And his vomit's blue, but that's probably just because of the gelatin and the drink. But yeah, you have to go and get liquid nitrogen from Toto, who's the tattooist.
The liquid nitrogen comes in handy later in one of the most dramatic parts of the game.
Yeah, I like the climax of the game a lot.
And I should mention, Chapter 4 is maybe my second favorite chapter after Rubicava and Chapter 2. Not because of its puzzles or because of the setting, which is why I like 1 and 2 so much, but because there's so much drama, and it gets intense in Chapter 4 with all the stuff happening.
Yeah, because 2 and 4. Oh, sorry, 2 and 4 have some nice story beats to them. Mm-hmm. 3 does as well, but 2 has some nice establishing, and then 4 builds up the drama. And there is also some really nice bits of drama in 2. So, like when Lola gets sprouted, which is really nice.
We mentioned this in the previous episode, but sprouting is scary and intense. It's sort of funny how they had, a way to destroy a person in Grim Fandango is to have flowers and vegetation grow all over them. But the way that they present it, and when you see people dying of sprouting, it's like, oh man, this is kind of weird and scary. So so when you're seeing people getting sprouted and facing the threat of sprouting, it's intense and adds some gravitas to a lot of the big plot points in Chapter 4.
Yeah, when you go back to
Some
Sorry,
sprouting some sprouting definitely happens in chapter 4. Sorry.
No, when you go back to Almaro, and one of the Lost Soul Society members comes in, and he's clearly been wounded, and he falls to the ground, and he starts sprouting, and everyone's panicking, and then Salvador comes along, and he chops off half of his body, and that fixes the problem.
And
Really interesting.
Yeah, and the skeleton is very grateful and very has a very positive attitude about his new half body.
He does. It's a really clever way of.
He's like hopping on because he has, I think, only one arm and most of his torso, so he's sort of like standing on one arm and like saluting and hopping in place. It's like, oh man, you all right? You are handling this much better than I would have.
Yeah, he was in good spirits, especially when you saw him in the casino area, like on a unicycle. I was like, oh my god, is that him?
I love that. I love that bit where he just climbed into the slot machine and took all the money. It's great. There are some really genuinely fantastic moments in this game, so if we come across as a bit negative, I think it's more out of frustration that there are things that prevent it from being as good as we want it to be.
Like the settings are so cool. I just wanted to live in Rubalcaba playing Chapter 2. Because it was this, like everything from like the casinos and sort of the dive parts of it. It like noir Mexican Day of the Dead, snappy dialogue, totally absurd elements like the cat racing and the bone tattooing and the the worker bees discovering communism. It's just like so much of it is bizarre and beautiful and cool that the puzzles get in the way of the fun. And even like the puzzles, when they happen, they're cool and creative. But actually getting there can be an exercise in frustration, which we've mentioned a lot this episode. It's there's so much cool about this game that feels hamstrung by other parts of it.
Yeah, exactly. So since we're there, the Lost Souls Association is trying to figure out where all these tickets are, why all these tickets are going to certain people, and why certain people can't leave the travel agents. So what do we think of them? Because obviously there's a bit of a twist towards the end of the game, or pretty much at the end of the game. I definitely brought up a relationship with Ava. I enjoyed just bugging her at the beginning of chapter 1. She was like your typical high school receptionist. Well, she was like the receptionist out of Ghostbusters in a way, I suppose. That's what she reminds me of. But yeah, Ava is not all she seems.
Yeah. It was a surprise in chapter 1 when she ended up where seemed to be this like sassy secretary and ends up working for a resistance organization, and then her turns in chapter 4 are pretty interesting too. Like there's a I thought Olivia was a bigger twist than Ava, but I'm not sure about that because I sort of was suspicious of Olivia from the beginning. I thought she was going to betray you in chapter 2, in year 2. Yeah, there's a lot of cool, memorable characters in this game, and it was really cool revisiting a lot of the ones I thought were behind us in chapter 4, or by year 4. I should stop saying chapter.
That's right. But yeah, I was completely surprised that she was the traitor, and when she turns up with her car, I was thinking, who is this? I think I thought initially it was Olivia, and got in the car and it was her, and I thought, oh, okay. And then she picked up Salvador's head, and I was then thinking, what's going on? I thought that...
No, that was Olivia.
Oh, in the car?
Yeah, in the car, that was Olivia. Olivia offers to drive Salvador somewhere, and he betrays her and separates his head from his body. That can be confusing. But no, because I'm not misremembering this. Because Olivia was she was the girlfriend and owned the cool cafe in Rubalcaba, and then she joins you and joins the resistance. But really, she's been working for Hector the whole time.
Yeah, it was Olivia.
I've got it. Yeah.
That was Olivia. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was. I've got it very confused.
No, it's all right.
Oh man.
It's confusing.
It's because of the glasses they wore.
It was because of the
it is true. They both have glasses that do look a little similar. Yeah, but the hair's different.
Yeah. Yeah, because Ava stays in the resistance base, doesn't she? She doesn't come along the whole time. So no, it is Olivia that betrays you. Sorry, everyone.
No, that's cool. It's
the thing, I guess this maybe flags an issue that I have, is that there are not a lot of links in the story. There are quite big jumps throughout that you have to piece together, and I struggled to follow along at times, and actually it was a lot more simple than I first thought, the whole plot thread. But I got confused quite easily, as I've just demonstrated, and really, like, other than a couple of the characters, see, I think the cast is really good as well, but there are a lot of characters that you see once and you don't see for 3 chapters, and then they reappear again, and they're suddenly the most important thing since Manny's first appearance in the game, really. But I think Olivia's betrayal did surprise me because, like you said, I mean, you suspected she would probably betray.
Yeah, I thought that because she was dating this crime boss and also helping Manny, made me think, oh, I bet she's gonna betray Manny to the crime boss because she's still always been loyal to him, and maybe she killed Lola because Lola was also, edging in on her man or something. But it was the lawyer that was manipulating all of that, and the crime boss was, if anything, sort of a neutral character in chapter 2, which would surprise me a little bit. But,
yeah.
But then she comes back in chapter 4. I still don't trust her. She's been working for Hector all along, and she meets death spectacularly with an exploding, sprout tooth that was hidden behind Salvador in Salvador's jaw, for a slightly gruesome and very satisfying end for her.
Yeah, that was very good.
It was cool, but man, sprouting is such a weird idea, and they make it so gross and scary. What a cool visual choice. I know I'm saying visual choice 8 times this episode, but I think that Grim Fandango has a lot of really cool visual choices that look surprisingly good and bold, even though it's almost 20 years old.
Yeah, I regret saying that I didn't like it visually in the first episode because I was completely dismissing the pre-rendered backgrounds. And like you've said, some of the decisions and some of the settings are really well thought out. I wonder, it's just, maybe it's more down to its controls, it's a little bit jaggedy and everything, but I do really like the world, and the more I explored it, and especially when I came back to Rubalcaba and came back to El Marrow and saw how they changed, I really began to appreciate it stylistically as well, so not just kind of the tone, but also the way that it looked. But sprouting is the one thing that always sticks in my mind, that when you get shot, you sprout up into flowers. And when you get to the greenhouse, obviously it all comes to a head because there's a big field of flowers, and then Manny suddenly goes, oh, is this where everyone Hector's killed has died? And changes everything completely. Like, a field of flowers is beautiful, but at the same time, it's basically where everyone's corpses are. It's quite nasty. But Hector makes for, you say, he was quite neutral, wasn't he, in chapter 2? And as a villain, he's a pretty standard villain. But I remember him being name dropped, and I kind of just ignored it at one point. I was very wrong to ignore it, and I had trouble remembering who he was again. But I think the showdown with him was pretty cool. So I thought initially he died when he was trying to climb across the buildings, but he didn't.
Well, I will say that the whole beauty of the sprouting thing, even though it's met with a gruesome end of a skeleton, it's very interesting, especially how Le Mans meets its end. That it's not just sprouting; it's this explosion of flowers.
Yeah, lots of gunk on the windows, wasn't there? It was quite gruesome.
Yeah,
you don't see it, but you just see it on the window. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wow, you just explode.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. I like that. I did skip over some of the stuff in the casino, and I've actually skipped over most of the puzzles because, weirdly enough, other than the beginning of the chapter, I think most of the puzzles in chapter 4 were probably the easiest. I didn't struggle too much to come up with solutions. I mean, I did use a walkthrough, but
they seemed They seemed more straightforward than the puzzles in most of the rest of the game.
Absolutely, they felt like the ones that I could come up with solutions for myself, like pouring hot coffee over somebody. The only thing I probably would have struggled with doing is the grinder, and then with the soldier's arm. That would probably have been the only thing I'd have struggled with. But I liked the encounter with the alligator, which was completely out of the blue. It was like the fire beavers. It's like, oh, it's a giant alligator.
I don't remember any foreshadowing about that alligator.
No. What was the growling in the sewer beforehand? Was it
Uh,
the alligator or?
I guess. But I mean, did anyone even mention the alligator before, like 5 minutes before
No.
he appears? It's
No. Exactly. Whether it was the florist's defense mechanism, I use that loosely, I have no idea. But yeah, he just appears out of nowhere. But I mean, I like crocodiles and alligators, so I'm willing to have them more video game representation. But
Yeah,
that was a
I
pretty
just
easy. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say I just like the way that you handled that in that puzzle that you just drop the car on its tail.
No, I like that. Oh yeah, because that's where Glottis is playing around with the suspension, isn't he? And he's making all of his funny noises again. But
and
yeah, I
this is jumping to the end a little bit, but I thought that the liquid nitrogen freezing, the sprouting going on in the center of Manny's chest, so he could pause to
yeah,
grab a gun, was a really cool dramatic fight moment that was very satisfying to execute.
it was. I really like that.
Hmm.
It's good to reuse the items. A lot of the items in Grim Fandango, you don't. The only one you really reuse is the scythe, and yeah, I suppose the scythe is the one main one, and then you don't really reuse any of them apart from the liquid nitrogen. So it
And
was a nice touch.
well, the liquid nitrogen was from the same chapter, right? The same year.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
like it sort of, if anything, it felt like sort of like a cool touch that at the beginning of every year all he has is his scythe,
yeah.
and then
He lost them
that's
as
the
well.
one thing you deal with.
Yeah, it was really nice. No, I really did like that. But since we're at the end, I don't think anyone surprised by what happened at the end of the game, other than, I mean, obviously the villains have died, so even Salvador, who is a pretty cool guy. So Salvador has met his end, but he's taken
Yeah, the villains are
Olivia.
all dead.
Yep.
One character has his heroic sacrifice, and that's Sal. I was a little surprised at the sort of going into the happy ending, going into the sunset kind of
Yeah.
situation. It felt a little too clean, maybe. But it was
Hmm.
still satisfying that that the people that deserve to go on to the afterlife happily did so, especially since like Meche and Manny had a pretty raw deal getting there. But the one thing that bothered me about the ending and maybe sort of the plot stuff around year four, and I think I mentioned this in the first episode, is that we really didn't get an idea of why Manny was there and or any of his backstory.
Yeah.
Because
So you
Mm.
found, yeah, you
all,
found out some of the victims. Sorry, you did find out about
mhm.
some of the people you guided, but Manny and most of the other characters. So you don't find out what Domino's there, do you? That's not something I've missed.
No, all you really
Yeah,
get is that Manny was a successful travel agent briefly, and then when the ticket counterfeiting ring sort of starts up, then Domino becomes more successful than Manny and takes Manny's old office.
yeah, but you
But
don't.
other than Manny like being successful, then unsuccessful, then getting embroiled in all this, you don't really know anything about what his past is, why he's stuck in limbo, why he can't get a ticket for himself, or couldn't even start, or why he was stuck there. Just nothing except the stuff that happens to him directly over the course of the game, and him getting because he did so much good, him being granted a ticket at the very climax. So I think that was a little unsatisfying. I would have liked, even if it was a hidden detail, or maybe it was a hidden detail and I just missed it. But I would have liked to learn more about Manny.
No, I didn't get a hidden detail either. I didn't pick anything up. It did feel like he was a good character. I really like Manny as the main character, but he's got not a lot. He's not got a lot of backstory, and I needed that probably to get more invested with him. Glottis, you kind of get a little bit of backstory too, I suppose, because he goes on about how he's created, tiny bit.
The real beautiful tragedy of the ending isn't Manny and Meche being together or Salvatore dying. It's Glottis crying as his friends are all
Yeah,
leaving on the train. It's like, oh, Glottis,
Oh.
I feel you, man.
it's okay. He's got his little minions with him. He'll be
And
fine.
he'll be able to drive and pilot very, very fast as much as he wants.
Yeah, he'll be very happy. Maybe he'll drive one of the number 9 trains eventually. That'll
Ooh,
be cool.
ooh, that
Yeah,
would be a good epilogue for him.
Mm.
yeah, he would enjoy that. He we might come
This
across
sounds
somebody
like
else.
a fanfic in the making.
Sounds like a sequel. But yeah, I agree. So I didn't really. I think I made it obvious earlier. I didn't really get the relationship between the two because we'd skipped off over so many days, where they year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. You didn't get the inside and the middle bit, so you didn't really see Manny and Meche develop any kind of relationship. So them going off into the sunset, I probably suspected, but I didn't feel overly satisfied with, because I don't have any answers as to why or what they want to do or why they want to be together or anything like that. So, like, why is Manny in the Eighth Underworld? Why is he working for the DoD? Why Meche? Why is it just Meche? Why nobody else? And over 4 years of trying to chase after her, why in particular is Meche the way who you want to be with? So
Well,
Yeah.
I can answer that though.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever
Oh.
like watched any other film noirs by chance?
I've
Yeah, I
I've seen
have.
some, yeah.
The one when I saw the whole thing was like Meche, like I was reminded of the film noir Laura, where the detective became obsessed
Oh.
with Laura, even though that she was reported like dead.
Mm-hmm.
But like just looking at her portrait, he's become more obsessed with her until eventually he actually meets her. And I feel like that's what Manny's doing. Like he has this obsession
Yeah.
over Mecha, and he's like, I gotta meet her again. I gotta meet her to right this wrong. Like this isn't right. Like I feel
Yeah.
like that's what it is with that. Like a little bit of an obsession.
I'm with you like with 80% of that at least, because because it's definitely not a romantic attraction. It wasn't love at first sight, and he's chasing after her because he wants to be with her. It was more like
Well, yeah, that it was an obsession. That's kind of like how it was, even though it did turn romantic.
well,
It was more of just an obsession.
I think it was almost it was almost like a competitive streak, or Manny snapping isn't the right word, or him deciding that enough was enough. Like he was so determined to get one over Domino and to get out of this rut that he was in, that he steals a ticket almost randomly and ends up being her, and he's so determined to have this be the thing that turns his luck around, and it's a combination of a competitive streak and maybe stubbornness, that he decides that Meche is the one that that's going to get him out of there. And then when he realizes that he may have doomed her with what he did, he, with that same stubbornness, is determined to make things right by saving her, because he blames himself for her not getting on the train, and also is just so furious at his coworkers that he wants to get this one deal that could turn his career around. So I don't know if it's an obsession or a fixation on Meche until maybe the end of year 1, when he's trying to find her for a full year in Rubikava. But it's not straight up romantic, which I think we both agree on. But it sort of becomes romantic at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I like that.
But I'm not familiar with that noir movie Laura. That's if I saw it, maybe I would see the connection better. But
I think it was Peminger who directed that. It was like
okay.
in 1942, 1943, or I think around that time.
Isn't she the character Laura used as a reference point in the David Lynch film Mulholland Drive? I seem to remember that.
Oh God! If you can explain Mulholland Drive to me, then you deserve an award or something, because that movie is incomprehensible to me.
Oh, I love it, but I couldn't explain it to you. I think there's definitely a character. There's definitely a character or some reference to that film. I do. Can we think of any other noir games, perhaps?
Ooh.
Similar. Yeah, because I really like noir. And film noir has been one of my favorite genres. I've not watched many films, but I just like the style of them. There's some really nice, jazzy, kind of slow, thrillery type feel to them. But also, like you said, Marcos, there are moments where there are like obsessions with these women and things like that. There's multiple different things that they throw around between the films, and I haven't seen enough of them, but from what I have seen, they are really cool, and they make me think of hard-boiled detective novels and things like that.
Well, the only thing I know about a game that's like a film noir is Discworld Noir, and
Oh.
but that's a more of a comedy than it is a.
Oh no.
Well, I
That's
mean,
fine.
yeah, Discworld is.
Well,
I mean, Discworld had several adventure games in the I want to say 80s or early 90s, and they're based off the Terry Pratchett's fantasy sci-fi absurdist books. And so,
That's pretty great.
and my favorite Discworld book, I haven't played any of the games, is Moving Pictures, which has a little bit of noir in it, but it's more like it's more like people just getting caught up in the spirit of the movies, and there's a lot of like old Hollywood, some old noir jokes in that book. So I mean, the Discworld books I've read are so creative that I'm sure a noir interpretation in that world is really something special. But I haven't played
Yeah.
Discworld Noir. My suggestion for a noir game, and it's less because of the setting and more because of like the character interactions, would be Hotel Dusk, which is
Oh
yeah.
yeah, which is a DS visual novel that had a sequel called Last Window that was Europe and Japan only. So if you can if you can find a copy of that to play it on North American DSs, but it's a little challenging for American fools like me. And I mean, shoot, we're practically missing the forest for the trees. There's literally a game called L.A. Noir.
Yeah,
That's,
I'm
Yeah,
looking at it right now.
I was thinking
Right.
of
It
that.
was like
yeah.
that. The Wolf Among
Yeah,
Us.
definitely.
Oh yeah, the Wolf Among Us. That's Wolf Among Us
Oh,
is
yeah.
a shoot,
Telltale.
yeah, Telltale adventure game based on the really excellent comic book series Fables.
There is noir around. It's a bit underused, though. I think I'd like to see it used some more. I mean, there's something coming out next year, which we have a preview of called Pixel Noir, which is like a turn-based top-style town RPG where I think you're a group of people who fight like detectives with guns, but it's turn-based RPG mechanics. So definitely check that out. And that's coming out in 2018, I think, early next year. But I'd like to see some more noir in games that we cover. I think it works well in.
Yeah, I was gonna say one that I'm pretty sure people are more familiar with is Heavy Rain.
Oh,
Oh yeah, of course,
that's
yeah.
yeah, I guess that's I would call that more like thriller, but there's noir vibes in that, especially since one of the characters is a detective trying to solve a case of serial
Yeah.
murders.
Mhm.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think Grim Fandango takes a very interesting stance on it, though. I like, and actually to link it to Discworld, both games slash fictions have a really great interpretation of death. So
I know that there's several Discworld games, but I thought they were mostly older than '99, and and
Yeah.
I'm definitely more familiar with the books than the games.
Yeah.
But the books are great. I mean, Terry Pratchett's a legend.
He is an
Mhm.
amazing human being. But yeah, they both have an excellent interpretations of death. So they both get goods in my books. But yeah, I mean, I suppose before we close out, I want to go over some of the other supporting cast members because we've spoken about how many, like, there are tons of really good characters in the game, but I think I found that I would get attached to characters and a lot of them don't reappear. So the first one I think of, and probably my favourite behind Glottis, is Lupe, who's the secretary girl in the second chapter, or the second year, where she looks after the coat hangers and that, and she's just this bubbly ball of insanity, really, and she's obsessed with. She comes up with this new coat hanger system, doesn't she? And if you ignore her, she is basically like, "Oh, you don't want to pay attention to what I'm doing or something." So she just completely loses it. But she's adorable, and then you don't see anything of her again. And there are a few characters like that pop up. So there's the tattoo guy who does pop up, but the guy he's tattooing doesn't. And I don't know whether that's because you've basically faked his death.
Well, I don't know. Maybe his death got unfaked because it's 2 years since you go back there after you fake his death. I don't know. I liked the vibe of year 2 so much that just like the big skeleton gangsters in suits taught like fixing cat races and stuff. It was
Yeah.
I would have liked to see more out of that gang boss and that lawyer and maybe even Olivia and Lola and Lupe.
Yeah, well, they get mentioned and they get brought up.
And
Olivia has
the
this...
weird French corrupt cop that you see that you see in 3 scenes. It's like, man, I couldn't trash talk him in the station, or the oh shoot, the desk girl that has a crush on Manny that you have to listen to her terrible story
Yeah.
for 5 minutes.
Yeah. There are so many good characters that get forgotten about that it's quite sad. I mean, the ones we do stick with are very good, so there's that, but there are so many other ones that could have had a bit more of a spotlight, I think. So
Now that Double Fine has found some success, in recent years with what is it? Lost Age? Is that their Kickstarted game?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Broken
With
Age?
Broken Age, that's it. Yeah, with Broken Age and their other recent stuff, I think we need a Grim Fandango 2 about Glottis.
Yeah. Driving the number 9.
Hmm
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's like a number 9 train robbery or something.
Mm.
Or there's a
Oh,
stowaway on the train, and he has to find out who it is and who has the wrong ticket, or else the train will get sent to hell.
Oh, that would be good. Like the whole like duration. But wait, but isn't the train like super fast? Like, was it like one day you get there?
Yes, you get there in
I
one
think,
day.
yeah.
Oh,
So
that'd be
so
great.
yeah.
It's a
Oh God.
countdown timer the whole time, so you have like this time
Oh
limit for
man.
the game
Oh,
ends. Like Dead
That's
Rising, where
that
you have
sounds
72 hours.
stressful.
Stressful
oh,
but good, kind of like Majora's
no,
Mask. Oh, I like
nothing
that.
stressful with Glottis around. Oh, I
See,
could
it'll
do
be a
that.
great time though. It'll just be laps the whole time until you get shot into hell
God,
for returning.
just murder on the Orient Express or something. Just but on the number 9 train. You have one
Murder
day
on
to
the number
solve
9
it.
train. Yeah.
God, you just had that's the title.
There you go. That's the Grim
But
Fandango 2 is Murder on the number 9.
what?
Make it.
Man, I'd play Murder on the Number 9, even if it wasn't Grim Fandango. That's just a cool assortment of words. But I have a similar speculative question for you. Now we've been talking about how much we love the dialogue and characters and visuals and concepts in Grim Fandango, and I think we're all positive on those parts of the game for the most part. But find the puzzles obtuse or frustrating or whatever complainy word you want to pick for them. Do you think that you would enjoy this more if it was like an 8 episode uh, like animated series with 2 episodes, each being a year, that was available on Netflix or Amazon Prime or something? Do you think that would be if it stayed to the spirit of the game and captured most of the game in those 8 episodes? Would you like that more than playing Grim Fandango? Because I think maybe yes, if the animation and production was of a good quality.
I agree. If they did a Castlevania, then
Yeah,
definitely.
yes. Give Grim Fandango the Castlevania treatment and retell it in a short animated series. I would be all over that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I'd
definitely
be down for that.
it works better as a narrative and a story and as a set of characters than it does an adventure game, I think. The controls are clunky, the puzzles are obtuse, the the rewards aren't really worth it, and only if you're a spectator, I feel, do you really get the full enjoyment out of it. And I don't like using walkthroughs for games. I will use them for sections, but the fact that I had to use a walkthrough for most of the puzzles of this game is quite frustrating. And I don't even remember having to do it with games like Monkey Island and things like that. Like, at least there's a logical solution because pirates are at least have been real. Skeletons are real, but not in the sense that they're walking around and are taking you to your death in real. So it's a very different logic that you have to get into. And
And
again,
I remember playing Full Throttle with a friend many years ago, and we beat most of the game without a walkthrough because it just it even though I think Josh in the previous episode brought up one puzzle that I do not remember, but it felt more grounded and more logical in what I was
hmm.
doing in that game. But in my defense, I think I was 10 or 11 years old at the time. Uh, it felt more grounded and logical in Full Throttle than what everything I was doing in Grim Fandango. And Full Throttle was only made like 2 years or maybe 2.5 years before Grim Fandango. They're by the same company of the same era, and Grim
Yeah,
Fandango just feels so much weirder and less intuitive in its puzzle designs.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
agreed. It is a shame though because it's got so much going for it, and I really wanted to come away like singing Grim Fandango's praises, and I
It does
can praise
so
part
many
of it.
things so cool, and it
Hmm.
feels like the puzzles take away from the experience, which which again has me going back to the idea if this was an animated series that,
Hmm.
that with the that was visually well made and has all of the cool dialogue and character stuff in it, I would like that better than the game.
Mm.
Hmm. So I suppose to close it out, I think we've heard basically our thoughts on favorite year and stuff like that, but I will go over it just so we can kind of go over our final thoughts and everything. Marcus, what did you enjoy most about the game? What section was your favorite? Anything particular that stands out, or anything that you don't like?
Well, I'll talk this time. I'll just talk about what I do like, and overall, like what I really enjoyed the most was just Glottis. Glottis was just a bundle of joy. This game, he was great, like comedic stuff. So it was really nice that Manny had his Glottis to go around to lighten the moon, even though like death loomed around the corner. Literally, like within like a door, like a room away, and Glottis is still able to like bring some joy to the conversation.
Yeah, Glottis is definitely going to be one to remember. I think
if we ever do a list of like best video game sidekicks, I would write a blurb about Glottis.
Yeah.
Same here. Absolutely.
Did you have a favorite year, or is it just kind of?
Favorite year? It's that one's a tough one. I'm gonna have to go with no doubt. It's year two. Year two is like the real like I don't want to say the real meat. I guess the real bones of Grim Fandango.
Oh man. That pun just took a year off my life, man. Whoa.
Good to have you, Marcos. Good to have you.
Join me in death. No, but like that really was like what I was looking for in this game, and I got it. And I wouldn't mind if there was like a series on just that year alone. That would be really cool. Like trying to find out, like doing a mystery around Lola, and like the whole season you're trying to figure out who did it, or rather,
if they made the whole Lola event more of a whodunit and less a follow the evidence, oh it's the lawyer kind of thing, then that would be a really cool game on its own. I agree. I'm telling you, man, Murder on the Number 9. We should make this happen.
Yeah.
I technically met Tim Schafer on an escalator at E3.
It's just next E3, if we see him, we'll pitch it at him.
Just whisper into his ear when you next see him next time.
I'm sure he'll recognize me. So it's it's guaranteed.
Like Sollosi of RPG Fan.
Yep.
You go to shake his hand, you just slip him a card.
Maybe I should have done that when I met Koji Igarashi this year, but it's a missed opportunity.
Oh, but no. So Mike, what kind of stands out to you about the game? I think you've been quite vocal about year two as well.
I have. Yeah, I'm. Year two was. I wish the rest of the game was more like year two. I loved the setting. I loved the. I loved the non-linear questing in it. The puzzles were insane but cool most of the time. My favorite thing was just the dialogue. When the characters were interacting, it was consistent. It was the voice acting performances were all great. It's cool hearing accents besides American and European accents in a video game, and even things like just Ava and Manny's sarcastic reactions to just checking things in a room were really fun in year one, and just I think that maybe the greatest strength of this game is the dialogue, and I enjoyed a lot of it. And I wish I wasn't rushing through the second half so I could, I don't know, poke around a little more on my own time like I did in years 1 and 2. But yeah, strongest part of the game was year 2, and the best part of the game is the dialogue and character work. And the most frustrating part are these puzzles, which we've,
Well, they are the heart of it, I suppose. That's the point of the adventure game. But yeah, I will join the year 2 camp. Definitely my favorite year in terms of setting, characters, mood, absolutely everything. They might have been the most non-linear and frustrating puzzles, but I think the rewards out of those puzzles were probably of the most interest and the greatest, and it's where the story begins to really kick in. To come off of your dialogue thing, because I love the dialogue and the voice acting is excellent. I really liked especially that because they were mostly non-American, the Spanish was actually, and the Mexican and the Hispanic language was actually ad-libbed in by a lot of the voice actors.
Awesome.
So especially Manny's voice actor, he was the one who kind of came up with the idea of, we'll just add in these phrases because that's more natural to us, and actually it adds a really nice depth and flavor to the entire style. Like I
was not aware that any of the dialogue was ad-libbed, and that just makes it feel even better and more impressive to me.
Yeah, so some of it was ad-libbed and some of it was suggested, like, oh, we can go off branch and speak in some Spanish, but it was a really nice touch, and it's a really nice game to play at Halloween, because it's a nice celebration, not Halloween, Day of the Dead even, just be online, you can play it. But it's a nice celebration of that culture, and yeah, I think there are a lot of really positives to take out of Grim Fandango, and it's just a shame that I've sort of come out of it, it's like slogged through it and come out feeling
Maybe I
like
should start a new game with tank controls and try to get a platinum trophy on the Day of the Dead later
mm,
this year. Would
mm,
that be fun, or would I drive myself insane
it,
and Retro Encounter would officially end on November 3rd?
it depends whether your patience is thin or we've got good patience. It depends. And it depends how experienced you are with tank
I have
control.
the patience to play Persona games 80 hours multiple times, but probably not enough patience to play
Would you play them?
with tank controls for 10 hours. I don't think I
Yeah,
am.
exactly. But no, yeah, Grim Fandango, kind of bittersweet, great ideas. Just maybe some of the puzzles were a little bit obtuse, maybe a bit too clever for itself at times, sometimes rewarding, but a lot of the times frustrated, and I just wanted to enjoy the world and the characters mostly. But unless anybody else has got anything, I believe that will be it for episode 97. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming back and listening. It's been really, really good to play this game, even if we've got some mixed opinions on it.
Yeah,
So
even
guys,
though I didn't love everything about Grim Fandango, sorry to interrupt you, Alana, but I'm glad I checked it off my list basically, because this is a cult classic that I've been hearing about for decades, or almost decades, I guess technically decade plus. But
yeah,
and even though I didn't love everything about it, I'm glad to have played it, and I'm glad to have experienced the highs of it at least.
yeah, I definitely agree. But we've got some really exciting things in the schedule coming up. So I'm going to skip a couple of weeks first because episode 97, we're approaching our 100th episode, which is absolutely amazing. This podcast has been going for about a year and a half. We couldn't keep it going without you guys' support. So thank you very much for listening for as long as you have. We've got something special coming up for episode 100. So look forward to that in September.
It's been more like
Next,
2.5 years because
oh, 2.5 years. Gosh, yeah.
it was May of 2015 is when we started.
Gosh. Yeah,
Oh
just before
man.
I joined. Yeah, blimey. So 2.5 years of listening. Even more thank you then for listening for so long and putting up with all of us wonderful people. So as I said, 100th episode in a couple of weeks' time. Please look forward to that. We've got something really special in the pipeline for you. Next week, though, we've already recorded this episode actually. 98 will be on Ultimate Weapons, so something a little bit different on the plate for you. Really fun to record. There's a lot of bubbly, exciting opinions on that one, and some really unique discussions on there. So that's definitely one you should look out for. And our September game has finally been announced. So this is a game we've kind of stuck with a trend that we did a couple of years ago near the start. So we played Final Fantasy X as one of our first games on the podcast. We did most of them played the HD remake, and this time another Final Fantasy game has just been remastered and re-released. So September's game is going to be Final Fantasy 12, and we've got a different host on that. I believe Caitlin Argyros is going to be hosting that one.
And
So
she is a person who has a lot to say about FF12.
yeah, so if you heard her on the Xenogears podcast, it's that level of enthusiasm. So definitely one to listen out for. I would really recommend it. Final Fantasy 12 has kind of bowled me away replaying it this time. So I'm really looking forward to those episodes, and I hope you are too. But yeah, so Ultimate Weapons, Final Fantasy 12, and episode 100 in that order. So really thanks so much for supporting us, and you can carry on supporting us. If you have got any questions, suggestions, comments, just pop us an email at retro@rpgfan.com. The mailbox head Mike will try to reply to you if you get through to him. He's probably inundated with requests and love and everything.
Not
I'm sure.
inundated, but I am usually pretty good about getting back to people that send an email or a message.
Good, good. But we love to hear from you. You can also
Yes.
comment on our boards. We have podcasts. We have some podcast boards on the forum, so definitely make your voice heard on there. We love hearing from the fans, and even better, if you listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, any other various podcast listening venue, please give us a review. We love 5 stars, obviously, but absolutely anything feedback is very important to us. We really appreciate that. So in terms of getting in touch with us personally, Marcos, where can we find you on the board, social media, everywhere?
Well, for myself, you can Wild Armor on the boards if you want to message me on there. On Twitter, I'm at Rhythmru, and that's about it. You can get me pretty easy on both of those.
Good. Rhythm Roost just flows. Every time I think I read your name, I'm just like, oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's high level internet naming. Absolutely.
It is. Definitely is. So Mike, where can we find you?
Right. I'm Monsoon on the forums. I am at the Real Monsoon on Twitter, and my second weird Twitter account for Kamen Rider and Super Sentai and Heroes of the Storm is at Evoker for Dogs.
I do. Sometimes I get responses from both of your Twitters
Yeah.
where you
So,
either like or retweet it twice, and I'm like, why?
no,
Like,
really, it's because I switch between them, and when I'm examining my feeds, sometimes I'll forget I've liked something. So
Very good.
that's happened before, and I'll maybe favorite someone's tweet as one, and then switch names, and then like reply to their tweet as the other one, and it's confusing for everybody involved. It's awesome.
Brilliant. As I said at the beginning of the episode, you can find me on the boards at Diving Falcons. Give me an excuse to come back onto the boards because I don't go around there very often. I'd love to speak to some more people. You can also email me at alanah@rpgfan.com. I love hearing from you guys directly. I've had a couple of emails over the last couple of weeks. Always love talking to everybody. Or you can tweet me, which is probably the easiest way to get hold of me, at Alana Hagues. But really, thank you so much for listening for this long. Still a couple more episodes to go until our big celebration. So I hope you enjoy what we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks. We've got a busy schedule ahead of Retro Encounter, and thanks for making these last 2.5 years so fun. So I'll speak to you all soon.
Hasta luego, everybody.
Bye.